This is where escape room tech started. But this is where it's going. Hey everybody, welcome back to Puzzle Creative's YouTube channel for escape room owners. And today we are going to walk through our escape room tech roadmap to take a look at the past, present, and the future of escape room electronics. So come on over to the board with me and we're gonna get started. So when we unfold the escape room tech roadmap, it consists of three main sections. On the far left, we have inputs, and on the far right, we have outputs. Now, before we continue developing this anymore, come over with me to the bench and we're going to sort out some of these devices. All right, so let's start sorting out some of this tech equipment here. So first off, on the input side, of course, we have our standard arcade button with a micro switch on there. Sorting through here, maybe something just like a manual switch, just on-off switch there, toggle switch. We also have on the input side something like the classic magnet switch, reed switch there. And then of course a little bit more complicated, but maybe something like an inductive or capacitive sensor. Capacitive sensor of course being if anything with more density comes in front of this here, after you've set the adjustment appropriately, then it'll trigger when we do something like this. Inductive meaning if we put a piece of metal in front of a sensor that looks like this, then it will get triggered. So something like that. And then of course we have something like an RFID sensor that's built into a keypad like this that we could use. On the output side, it looks like we have a few lights here. Your regular RGB strip light would be something we could use for output. Just a normal LED light, an indicator light like this, or even a floodlight would be something like this. So those are a few things that we have on the bench here on the input side and on the output side. So a few more specialized inputs that you might also run into would be something like maybe a load cell, which helps you measure the weight of something based on electrical resistance. Another one might be something like a float switch or a water detection sensor. And then maybe some infrared sensors for detecting if there's a person nearby, or a beam break sensor that uses infrared, or even a remote control that uses an infrared signal to send it to a receiver. On the output side, some other things that we have obviously would be electronic locks. And these could be things like, of course, you've got the standard mag lock, solenoid, and also electronic bolts, which could be either fail-safe or fail-secure. Then, of course, we have linear actuators. We have different types of motors. You have your just standard motor, but then also you could have servos, stepper motors, audio, and video as potential outputs. And the list could go on inputs and outputs. The interesting thing is, these inputs and outputs, for the most part, have not changed in a decade of escape rooms. What's this part in the middle? This part in the middle, of course, would be our controllers. And this is where the magic happens, and there's also been a big evolution that's happened in the past decade. So let's start looking at the landscape of escape room controllers, and we're going to move sort of from the past into the future, which also follows the trend of simple to more complex controllers. Now at the very beginning, you might not have even used a controller at all. You might have just gone straight from input to output, doing something like press a button to turn on a light. But once we started using controllers, the very first thing was something just like a simple relay. Now after this, if you were to progress, you could move on and maybe do something like buy a, let's say, a pre-made prop, like that classic blow out the candles prop from China. After pre-made prop, the next stop is probably the pre-built or pre-made controller from somebody like Fright Props or Badass Controllers, or even somebody like Escape Room Supplier, all of those sort of off-the-shelf options. Now, the next stop is into the DIY world of microcontrollers. So these DIY microcontrollers would be things like Arduinos, we have ESP32 boards, we have Raspberry Pis. All of those development boards would be at this time. Now also around the same time, if you took a different path like we did, you also could do some more complex operations using sort of complex relay configurations. Now I will say we just did a video on how to create your own prop controller for under $30 that I'd recommend you check out. You can check out the video here. Now we did choose to skip some of these pre-made and microcontroller steps in our evolution, and we went more from simple relay directly to complex relay. A couple of reasons for that. One, we found them to be more reliable than some of the microcontrollers. And also, we just feel that if we started using everything that's pre-made, then we would get off of the innovation curve, and the development for us is a really important skill for us to continue to stay sharp on. One other reason that we decided to bypass the pre-made and microcontroller era and just stick with more complex relays was we didn't want to be at the mercy of a company that sold a product one day and then decided not to. Does that sound familiar? Now what's interesting here is if we divide this down the center, we essentially have a story of two parts. On the left side we have analog controllers, and on the right side we have digital. Now another important line to draw here is right about here, and that is to separate the era of decentralized logic from centralized logic. All the controllers that are above the line are decentralized logic controllers. Now anything below the line would be in the era of centralized logic, meaning the game is governed by a central computer or a brain that spells out the logic for how you solve something and then what effects happen as a result of that, as opposed to decentralized where it's all disparate in different props. So there are a couple of notable mentions here. Of course we have PLCs or programmable logic controllers. And I put this in sort of the center left to right on purpose because while they have more coding aspects to them, which would be digital, they rely more on, in my opinion, more analog outputs like relays. So I put them there. And then finally, the pinnacle of centralized logic control would be show control. And show control, we believe, is the direction the escape room industry is headed in the future. So we also decided to leapfrog PLCs and move straight to a show control system, and we've developed our own software and hardware stack to drive our own in-house show control system. Now, there are four big advantages that we see to a show control system. The first one is flexibility. When you're building a game around a show control system, you have the ability to change the game on the fly with code instead of having to reroute wires. So the logic of the game can be changed dramatically with just a few lines of code. For instance, if you wanted to change your game to have adaptive difficulty based on the skill level of the players, that's much easier to do with a show control system versus some of the more traditional logic controllers. Also, if you wanted to adapt the game for age groups so that it's a little scarier for adults and not so scary if you have a kid in the group, that's something that you can do easily as well with a show control system. The second advantage of a show control system is compatibility. A show control system can communicate in more ways and to more types of devices than other controllers. It also has fewer limitations on the number of inputs and the number of outputs versus something like, let's say, a do-it-yourself microcontroller. The third advantage of a show control system is visibility. This is a really powerful feature that allows you to see and control everything in your game in real time. So if you want to change the state of audio, video, lighting, maglocks, anything at all, you can do that with the click of a button. The fourth advantage of a show control system is possibility. More than any other controller, show control allows you to have greater immersion and better storytelling by bringing all of the technical aspects of your game together to create these magical moments and really to put on a show that's going to wow your customers and want them to come back to play more games. And that's why we believe show control systems are the development platform for the future of the escape room industry. We're going to dig into more detail on show control systems at our conference, PuzzolCon, in September. There's a link in the description below. Be sure to check it out at PuzzolCon.com. Hope to see you there. And for more content like this, please like and subscribe.